Hey friends, I'm Otis Gibbs, and this is my buddy Gurf Morlix. He's going to talk about playing Austin City Limits with Ray Wylie Hubbard.
I did a lot of work with Ray Wylie Hubbard over the years. I met him and we just hit it off, and we had similar tastes in music. We just had this conversation at my house one day, and it was an introductory meeting kind of. I said, all I'm listening to these days are like prison chain gang recordings, and I was just loving those. He goes, "Oh man, I'm listening to work crew recordings," and so we just hit it off, and I started producing records for him, and I think I did like 5 records for him, something like that. And he had never done an Austin City Limits show, and he could have done one when they started, which was 74, I think. He should have. He was well known then, and they were Willie and B.W. Stevenson and these people were all doing the show. But for some reason, and I don't know what happened, but Ray never got one. And then into the 90s and the double noughts and the teens, like people were writing, they were signing petitions, put Ray on Austin City Limits, and it just wasn't happening. And finally, they offered him a show. And I think it was not long after COVID started. They claimed to not know why he never had gotten one, and that's possible, Oversight, I don't know, but it never happened. But they gave him a show, and he called me up and said, we're going to do Austin City Limits. I want you to play bass with me. And I said, well, let me think about this. I'm pretty much quarantining, because I don't want the COVID. And I decided that I had to do it. And so this was very early on. We didn't know about N95 masks or anything. It was just, I had a little mask on my face that I wore all day long. I was there for like 10 hours or something. You arrive in the afternoon and you sound check, and there's a dinner break, and then you come back and you perform the show. It took all day, and there was no audience because of COVID. And I called up Ray. I said, your jokes are hilarious, but there's going to be dead silence. And I had watched people like Stephen Colbert suddenly have to deal with this uncomfortable silence when they would deliver a line. I said, Ray, you got to think about this. This is not going to be easy. And so we did it. There was only the crew there, and there might have been, 20 people on the crew. I don't know how many there were, but and they were very polite and applauding, but they told us that they would pad the sound with some applause and make it seem more natural. But it was really weird to not play to anyone. And I think they had someone else scheduled to come in the next week, and half the people on the crew got COVID, and they had to cancel that one. So we were there all day, and they gave everyone a hotel room in the adjacent hotel. For dinner was room service by myself in this hotel. But a guy had to come into my room and put the tray down. And, we didn't know anything at the time, so I was really trying to not get sick. And it worked out fine. It was just weird doing the show without an audience.
So this is the perfect place for a joke about, you've played Nashville, so you know what it's like to not play to an audience.
Industry town, Remember I was playing with Michael Penn. He had a hit single back in the early 90s, and we did this national tour and did really well everywhere. You got a hit single, you got people coming out to your shows, and then we get to LA, and we played the Wiltern Theater, and they telling us, yeah, that show's sold out, I thought, well, this will be great, into the tour. And it was like half empty. And people had bought tickets, but because it's an industry town, they just didn't show up. And it was always the same in Nashville, you get there and expecting a giant crowd, and they were just jaded. People coming through town all the time. Not in New York, though. That was always great. New York was great. From the first time I played there, every gig afterward was amazing. Well, he just needed to know that his timing was going to be thrown. And he did it really well. I was proud of him. He didn't talk as much as he would have, But the benefit of the next show being canceled was we got the whole hour. You play for an hour and a half or whatever, and then they usually split their hour-long show with two acts. And so we were going to get 30 minutes or 27 minutes or however long that works out to. And so we got the whole show. So, most of our set was included. That was in our favor.
I was impressed by how well they put the canned audience in there.
It didn't seem unnatural. Yeah.
Was this like a big sense of accomplishment for Ray?
Yeah, it was. We were vibrating at the end. It was a great show. Ray was great. I noticed a few times in between songs he was totally out of breath, and so was I. It was, we deserved to be up there, and we acquitted ourselves really well. It was, we had done a couple of rehearsals, and the band was good, and I knew if we got out there and swaggered, everything would be fine. The swagger is the key. That was always the deal with Lucinda and that great band. We'd get ready to go on stage, and we ready to swagger. I've played bass most of my life. I got a bass when I was 19 or something, and it's a different instrument than a guitar. It's a different approach, and some guitar players can't be bass players. They just don't know how to do that. But I just instinctively did from the get-go. And, when I was living in LA in the 80s, for a while there, I was doing a lot of pickup gigs, casuals, and somebody would need a bass player. And so I played bass a lot in Nashville, and I played guitar a lot, and I played steel a lot. And there would be like groups of people that only knew me as a bass player or only as a steel player, because that's what this act would call me for. And then, like I go on Austin City Limits with Lucinda, and people are going, "You play guitar too?" It's like, yeah, well. So anyhow, I played bass a lot, and I don't know how long it'd been. I don't know how long it'd been since I had played a gig, but I played bass with Blaze all the time. It was when we did duo stuff, it was mostly me and him and me on bass, because he finger picked so well. He filled it up, Yeah. Well, when the band was big, which it was sometimes, and we had Terry Wilson playing bass. It was a great bass player, and I'd go on the guitar. But the duo gigs were mostly me on bass.